we talked about other moves that are going on. I wanted to just quick shout out DeMar DeRozan and Jonas Valanciunas reunited in Sacramento. So Raptors reunion. And that also reunites Lithuanian front court Domantas Sabonis and Jonas Valanciunas together in Sacramento. So it's a new look Kings, also adding Zach LaVine. There was a Kyle Kuzma swap for Chris Middleton now, and Marcus Smart now both in Washington with the Wizards. The big one also, DeAndre Hunter, another reunited with Ty Jerome. So the Cavaliers are now Cavaliers again together in Cleveland. When we talk about some of these deals, I'm big on the DeAndre Hunter deal. Where should we start with some of the ones that maybe have shifted things or at least been like the improvement in the margins that could make things look a little different come April?
Yeah, I'll let you rock out with the DeAndre Hunter deal because I do want to talk about that one too. But one that I feel like kind of got passed over because it happened. Well, I was going to say early in the morning. It was early in the morning my time. It was like 7 a.m. my time. I think it was like 10 a.m. your time. Kyle Kuzma to the Bucks. Like that's one to me that like he's not having a great year with the Wizards, but it's kind of a similar situation like we were just talking about with Mark Williams at the Hornets. Like how much can you really take away from those types of games? And like, you know, he's someone that's won a championship before as a starting caliber player with the Lakers. You know, at this stage in Chris Middleton's career, he was not much of a defender at all. And even on the offensive end, he was pretty rusty, you know, just showing signs of age. So to go from him to Kyle Kuzma is a massive upgrade for the Bucks. And like, that's a player who can create his own shot. He can, you know, just catch and shoot if he needs to do that. You know, he can make for others. Obviously he's not a known defender, but he's still someone that's, you know, I think he's like 6'8", 6'9". Like he's still long. He's still capable of throwing him on bodies on the perimeter if he wants to be locked in on that end, which as we've seen in his career, it's not always that way. But, you know, I mean, at the same time, like during that entire Lakers run, Kyle Kuzma was very solid for that championship team. So, you know, that's a big upgrade for the Bucks. That's one that I have my eye on. And then another one that I think kind of slipped under the radar a little bit, and I'm curious to see how much of an impact he can make there, is Bogdan Bogdanović to the Clippers. Like that's one where, you know, he had kind of been away from the team as the Hawks tried to find a trade for him, but he's a player who, like, to me, you know, whether it was on the international stage, you know, we saw him step up and have big games against like the Celtics in the playoffs last year. Like he's someone who is never afraid of the moment. He kind of plays with a chip on his shoulder. He can go get a bucket at any level of the floor. You know, again, he's not someone that's known for his defense, but, you know, just to add another weapon, another playmaker, another scorer to that Clippers roster that constantly has guys in and out of the lineup, it never hurts having depth like that. So those are two that caught my eye. But, you know, the DeAndre Hunter, the Cavs one, is definitely one of the biggest moves of actual deadline day.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one more note on the Kuzma swap, right? Because one thing we've said about the Bucks for years now is that they're an old team. And in trading Middleton for Kyle Kuzma and also picking up Jericho Sims, they got younger. If only ever so slightly, they got a little bit younger. It's not like Jericho Sims is going to come there and just be a guy who's playing 25, 30, 35 minutes for them, but it does infuse little youth into their roster. And I think that is just something that has been not the chief reason. I think health is what kind of closed their window, but we've seen that youth, and that probably go hand in hand, right? Guys who have a lot of miles on their body are missing time late season. They break down, having injuries that impact them in the playoffs. And it's just hard for Chris Middleton, 2 ankle surgeries, to overcome that. So Bucks try to get younger. I don't think it does not put them in the same tier with the Cavs, with the Knicks, with the Celtics, but it helps them at least fight in that area. If they're in a 4-5 matchup with somebody like Miami or something like that, they have the best player in the series. They're going to have a chance. And we've seen things happen. Players go down. Players are unavailable. Who knows? You just got to give yourself the best opportunity to put yourself in the best position to make a run. Now, speaking of the Cavaliers, and it's something that we've talked about for a while with them, is that need for that wing, for that guy. They're set at guard. They got Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. They're set in the front court. They got Evan Mobley, and they have Jarrett Allen. And we've talked about, you know, Max Strus being the dead-eye shooter, and Isaac Okoro having a very specific role. And, you know, Karis LeVert, when he was still on the roster, people, it's like the meme. He wakes up and decides what Jordan he wants to be today. Is it 93 Michael Jordan? Is it, you know, Jordan Clarkson? Is it Jordan Poole? You're going to get one version of it. So you get more consistency by bringing in DeAndre Hunter, who is having the best season of his career, averaging 19 points per game this year. I think shooting, either a shade under 40 or right over 40% from 3. And he locks up. We saw what he was able to do when he was in college and the reputation that he brought with him to the NBA. And I joked earlier, and we've joked about what the Knicks have, but there is the power of friendship. He and Ty Jerome go way back to their time at Virginia, where they won a national championship together. So all of those factors go in. I do think that the Cavaliers, and we talked about this when the Knicks made the moves that they made before the season, the Eastern Conference, we know, in order to dethrone the champs, you need to have depth on the wing. And bringing in a guy like DeAndre Hunter addresses that need. So long as he can keep up what he has shown with Atlanta this season, the stakes are much higher now. But there's nothing that I've seen from him that suggests that he's not going to be able to step up to the moment, even if there's going to be an adjustment period.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter was, in my opinion, the front runner for Sixth Man of the Year at the time that he was traded. Yep. He was leading the entire NBA in total bench points, leading the NBA in 25 point games off the bench and 20-point games off the bench. And you talk about his ability on the defensive end. Like, this is the type of move that directly correlates with the game that had just happened against the Celtics the other night. Yeah. It's like, this is the best offense in the NBA. The Cavs have the best offense in the NBA, best offensive rating. They have what seems like a plethora of scoring options between DG and Donovan Mitchell. Sometimes Mobley gives it to you. Jared Allen gives you the dirty buckets off the offensive boards and catching lobs and things like that. But when they play against Boston, it always seems like either one of Garland or Donovan. Well, Donovan Mitchell has torched the Celtics lately, but in the playoffs last year, I should say more so, like, one of those guys is going to give you a good night, and the other, it just seems like, is not going to have it. Mm-hmm. Like, for one of the best offenses in the NBA, they couldn't get it going against the C's the other night. And like, a player like DeAndre Hunter on the wing, who can knock down threes, who can, put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. He is someone who alleviates a little bit of pressure off of those two guards from having to do everything on the offensive end. And I would expect him to be a starter in Cleveland, which means he's probably going to forego the opportunity to win Sixth Man of the Year. But at the same time, to get a player like DeAndre Hunter who can go out there, who can defend either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, take a little bit of pressure off of, whoever the Cavs had been using at small forward. Sometimes it was Dean Wade when he's healthy. Sometimes it was Isaac Okoro. Sometimes it was Max Strus. Like, those are all guys that I think Boston would have felt more comfortable attacking than DeAndre Hunter. So, he's not necessarily someone who's going to go out and just shut down the Jays, but he's someone that can offer a hell of a lot more resistance than the players that they had in there before. I really like the move. It's an aggressive move. It's a move that, hey, we're right here. We're knocking on the door. We think we're as good as any team in the NBA. All they had to do was give up a couple valuable pieces. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Georges Niang and Karis LeVert were both in the rotation, but at the same time, like, anytime you can make a swap like that for a player like DeAndre Hunter, I think it's a great get for the Cavs, and I think it's one of the most underrated moves at the deadline. Yeah,
it's funny too, because you mentioned that correlation with that matchup with Boston, and Georges Niang is a guy who, I mean, he's a local. He's from around here, but he doesn't play well against the hometown team, right? He always struggles, and it's not necessarily an indictment on him, the moment being too big, or him being nervous about being home, or people from home watching. It's just not a good matchup for him. And ultimately, when you're building a team in this era, so long as it's going to be the Celtics and everybody else, regardless of where they are in the standings, that's what it is until they are dethroned. You got to match up with them as well as possible. And I don't think that there is much of an issue or much concern with how the Cavs match up with the Knicks right now, but they have addressed real concerns again. Ultimately, the Jays are going to be the Jays, but bringing in DeAndre Hunter, who is a solid guy, 6'7", 6'8", 230 strong, that's resistance. You can match that size on the perimeter, especially with a smaller backcourt, because Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell just aren't big guards by any means, or at least when they're together. If they were, paired with a bigger guard, it wouldn't feel as bad. But the fact that that's their starting backcourt, you feel like you're kind of at a disadvantage to begin with, because Drew Holiday and Derek White, big guards, plus size guards, and then the mismatches just start there and go on. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out as the season goes on and what happens in the Eastern Conference. But that was a big move for them, and that's what teams who really want to win a championship, those are the type of swings that they make. Don't really know what the Hawks are doing, especially for a team that doesn't have its own draft pick, but that's another conversation for another time. We'll see what happens with them as the season goes on.